Nobody saw it coming. At least the disciples didn't seem to understand what was right around the corner for them. You see, they had just seen their teacher ride into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey like a king. They'd been with him 3 years. They'd seen him teaching from the scriptures. They'd seen him casting out demons. They'd seen him healing the sick. They'd seen him saying that he was bringing the kingdom of God to bear. And yet, the disciples did not perceive that their teacher, their rabbi, their king, Jesus, was called to die. That his approach to Jerusalem was his approach to his crucifixion. It's not that they hadn't been given signs. It's not that they hadn't been taught. In Bethany, at the house of Simon the leper, they saw a woman come and anoint Jesus with expensive oil. And what was the reason? Well, Jesus said it was to prepare him for his burial. When he'd eaten with the disciples at the Passover, he said that, "Truly, truly, I say to you, one of you will betray me," and yet they did not understand. After the Passover meal had passed, he took a cup and he took some bread and he broke it and said, "Take, this is my body." And he took the cup and said, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many." And yet they still did not understand. And so they continued to say that the kingdom of God was going to come. And he then said, "Every one of you will betray me, or every one of you will deny me, and I will be alone." And even Peter, the most brash, the most forthright, the most outspoken disciple, he says, "Even if all of them leave you, I will still not leave you." And yet he says, "Even you, Peter, will deny me." And then the officials came, and they put up a fight for a minute, but soon Jesus found himself alone. Now, when I was a child, I used to think that Jesus really could have found a better lot of disciples. I mean, who are these guys, right? As soon as you really need them, they're gone. But as I've grown older and seen more of myself, I've realized that I'm a lot more like these blundering, foolish disciples than I care to admit. How many of us have failed in following after Jesus? How many of us have confused the will of God for our material well-being? How many of us have wanted to be in the upper room with Jesus but had no interest of being in the outer courts with Peter when he's asked, "Do you know this Christ?" How many of us would be willing to follow Christ even if it cost us anything? How many of us have wanted the kingdom without the cross? What this passage really seems to teach us is that all of us have gone astray. We have all turned, every one of us. No matter how hard we have tried, we are unable to follow Jesus to the cross on our own. What this passage teaches us is that Jesus had to go to the cross alone because only he could accomplish our salvation. And he had to go on our behalf. In Mark 14, we're being taught that our weakness, our inability to join the kingdom of God on our own means that we need Christ to die for us. He must go alone first so that we can go at all. And it's only through this death of this solitary figure, Jesus Christ, that we are able to have life. So I want to invite you to consider this week, as we look at this text, do you realize how desperately in need of grace you really are? You realize how quickly your attempts to follow after Christ turn into shambles when you try on your own strength? Do you realize that only Christ can accomplish your salvation? Because when you do, you're ready for the gospel of Christ crucified.